welcome to our conversation about women in power. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Before we begin, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this conversation?
Sure, Kristen. I've been in the community for a very long time. I came here in 1963 and became involved in the community immediately. Was fortunate to go to work for the city of Fresno and work in a system that is a powerful system. Government is a powerful system. And to go into a position in a relatively short period of time that had influence, if you will, and power associated with it. And so I've been sort of initially a front row observer that then moved into sort of participant observer. And not only what my experience has been, but being able to watch and observe others over a period of time has been really, truly a lifelong and lifetime experience that I'm very interested in. Very.
So that brings us to how would you define power? And it's a big topic.
It is. And it's got a bad reputation. The word power has got a bad reputation. We always hear power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that can be true if it's misused, but power exists. It is what it is. And so I think it's really important that we understand and then we use it appropriately. Power is basically, from where I come from, power is influence. If we exert influence over others, we have power. Power is really a perception. If we have the perception, people perceive us as powerful, we are, because they'll follow us. If they don't, even if we have the title, we have ascribed power. But if we're not respected, or we're not confident in it, or we misuse it, then oftentimes folks will not follow. So I believe it's a perception. I do believe it starts inside. So if we have confidence, that confidence then translates to being able to be influential, and that has to do with power. I think for me, it's pretty straightforward. Now, then it gets very complex after that, but that's how I define it.
So how did you come to this definition?
It's really interesting, and for me, it happened to me almost overnight. As a young person in growing up, I was a completely powerless person. I really had no influence in my home. We moved every year, so I didn't form relationships. I never had a chance to get into a real good relationship, like with a teacher who was like a mentor ever, because we were constantly moving, and I really stayed in the background. I was very, very insecure. So that was true through all my years of early education, primary education. Went to the same high school, but it was a brand new school in a community that basically had families in newer and more affluent area, and we weren't, and so I was really insecure. I would love to have done more, was just too insecure even to step forward and try it. Graduated from high school within the first week of junior college. I went to junior college in Modesto for a year. I realized that everyone was like pretty much the same. You didn't have to have fancy clothes or parents that were professionals to be just the same as everybody else and have sort of the same role, same place. And so I got involved right away. I got involved in committees and got involved in projects and I will tell you, I came into my own and I felt confident. I had confidence for the first time in my life. And so I think that brings power, even though I wouldn't have called it that at the time, because people listen to you. When you feel confident and you exert that and you express it, people listen because everybody sort of wants to have that. And I would say to you, I think that's been the case ever since. When I set out to do something and I feel good about it. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm arrogant or that I know how to do everything because I don't. But, people show you and they help you and you get better at it. You have better understanding and then that increases your confidence and then you just kind of do it. So for me, it was just almost a sudden realization that I was a valuable, contributing human being along with everybody else. I look back at that now, and I think I experienced that. It was amazing.
So can you put your finger on what exactly about that transition caused that change within you?
I don't know that I can. It's not anything anybody told me. It's not anything that I had studied and learned, because I'll tell you the truth, I was not a good student. I'm a quick study. I can read something and I can memorize it for the moment. I'm fond of saying I had acabulimia, because I could bring it all in and put it all out on paper, and then I didn't really learn it, but I got great grades. And so being that, and I'm not bragging about that, because I've had to learn a lot of stuff since then. So it was just sort of that realization that happened. But suddenly I was participating on committees, and I got to sketch some leaf pages for the yearbook, and I got my picture in the newspaper going to the dance, because I was on the dance committee. And I realized that if you just go do it, then you do it. So there really wasn't any particular thing. Now I reflect back on that, and I see that. And I think that's something that's available to all human beings. And I think now, this is a project about women in power. So women have not been the dominant group. And there are other groups that are not dominant groups. And so when we're not part of the dominant group, we hesitate. We are insecure. We hold back because we're not sure what's going to happen. And I sort of had an early life that encouraged that anyway. So when I actually then did step out and offer to do something and have it received and valued, that realization took place, that if you'll just step forward and offer and then do your best, that you will achieve a certain kind of personal power. And with that kind of personal power, which I think has to do with confidence, you move into positions of power. So I think there are many who would characterize that they fought for it. They scrapped and they fought for it. I'm going to say that was not my experience. Now, I had to come through. I had to pay dues. I was with the city of Fresno for a long time, and I got a position early on that was in a male-dominated group, and I had to earn my way through. There's that saying that says, sometimes if you're not in the dominant group, you have to be twice as good and work twice as hard to get at the same level. And that's true. That's generally true in society. And I did have to do that. But throughout that, I felt okay about what I was doing, and I was willing to learn, and I was willing to try, and I didn't feel a sense of resentment. I felt a sense of, let me just try a little harder. If I didn't do a good job at that, or that wasn't an acceptable level, let me try a little harder, because I'm going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what motivated you throughout this process? Did you have mentors of any kind?
Once I was an adult, interestingly enough, when I went to work for the city of Modesto, I did a year in junior college in Modesto. I went to work for the city of Modesto, and there was an opening in something called the city clerk's office, which I had no idea what that meant. But I interviewed with a woman who was the assistant in the department, who literally lobbied me into that office. My dear, you must come work here. It will be good for you. And she mentored me. I remember the first set of council minutes I ever wrote. There was not a line that didn't have a correction in it. I remember her saying to me, my dear, don't they teach you anything in school? Now, I didn't take umbrage at that. I didn't take offense. I said, yeah, and I'll show you. I was just motivated. I will show you. I said, my goal was my first set of minutes that didn't have any corrections in them. And so that was sort of my outlook on life. I'm very grateful to have that outlook on life. It has stood me very well. It has said, you're going to encounter glitches along the way, and there's going to be obstacles, but there's a way to get through those. There's a way to work your way through those, and you're going to end up where you set yourself to go.
So, I mean, a lot of that obviously comes from within. I mean, we're all different personalities.
Yeah.
But if there was somebody out there, say, who maybe felt disempowered in their life, especially women, if you were to mentor somebody like that, what kind of approach would you take?
Yeah. Let me say something about mentorship and then add that. Mentorship is an interesting thing, and we sort of contrive it sometimes and say, we'll appoint these two people, we'll be a mentor. And that's not necessarily real functional. Mentorship happens with relationship. And so we find our own mentors sometimes. And I'm not one that says, you can be my mentor, but I will see that somebody's doing really, they're doing it, they're making it. And I'll just follow them around and ask them a lot of questions. And people know when you do that, and they'll answer your questions. And so you form this sort of mentorship relationship. And I've done that. I did. The lady at Modesto offered. She took me through. She really taught me a lot. When you're in the position to really be mentoring someone, I think what's really essential is we all have within us abilities, skills, desires. We have all of that. It's that constant recognition and reinforcement of the value of the person, who they are, what they do. And so it's often a matter of just stop for a moment and think about what you did and what value that added, and accept it. Accept that in yourself, that you have added value here, and continue to do that and reinforce that and be appreciative of what you're able to contribute, because everybody does. If we don't get that, then if we're already a little bit insecure, if we don't get it, we stay insecure. So mentorship says, let me just continue to support and reinforce and help remind you that you have value and you're contributing something here. Because everybody does.
Yeah. Well, you've convinced me. Your enthusiasm is infectious. I'm so inspired right now. So I mean, those are obviously some lessons that you've taken just kind of as a student of life. Do you feel that this influences in any way? Like I know that you teach.
Yes.
Does this influence your practice as an educator?
It does in this way. Again, I'm fortunate and I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I have this love of life and this enthusiasm for life. And so that finds its way into the classroom always. So that when I'm communicating whatever it is, a subject, and I'm not one of those that says, okay, like I know everything, I'll come and tell you, then you learn it, then you write it down, and then you get a good grade at all. It really is whatever I bring into a classroom is what I bring in, but everybody else brings in just as much. So we bring it all together, and whatever subject we're studying, we look at, what the theorists have found over time. This stands the trial of time. What do you bring? What do I bring? How does that all work? And people connect with that. And the bottom line of everything is when people connect, when there's connection between people, then that's what brings us to whatever that level of success that would be, that sense of personal influence and that sense of personal power that we can then take and do good with.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. For you, would you say that you think of power more communally than individualistically?
Yes, I do. And I found that to be the case, and I found that to work. That's what works. That's what's effective.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for having this great project, Kristen. Thank you.